In the dry heat of the American Southwest, under a sky so wide it seems to swallow sound, the elders tell stories. Stories of fire and wind, stories of stars that walked among men, stories of the Kashina spirit beings who descended from the heavens, taught the people, then vanished into the cosmos. With a promise to return, this is not fiction to the Hopi, this is memory. For the Hopi people, time is not a line, it is a circle. And every circle begins with the first world, a paradise where humans lived in harmony with the sky beings. But something changed. Greed, division. The balance broke. The earth was cleansed. And a new world began. This has happened not once but 4 times, according to Hopi prophecy. We are now living in the 4th world, and the 5th, marked by a return of the Star Brothers, may be near. The Kashinas, the Hopi say, are not spirits of the dead. They are living entities from the sky, described as glowing masked figures, often associated with stars and flying shields. Some Hopi drawings depict Kashinas wearing what looks eerily like helmets or breathing apparatus, long before such things existed on Earth. To outsiders, these are myths. But to the Hopi, they are ancestral truths. And these truths don't stand alone. Travel thousands of miles south into the highlands of Peru, and you will find one of the planet's greatest enigmas etched into the earth like messages to the sky. The Nazca Lines. Sprawled across a desert plateau are hundreds of massive geoglyph straight lines that run for miles. In giant figures of birds, monkeys, humanoids, and geometric shapes so large they can only be fully seen from the air. Mainstream archaeology says they were made for religious purposes, perhaps for sky gods to see from above. But that raises a question. Who were these gods supposed to be, if no human had ever flown? Some of the lines appear to be runways perfectly straight over uneven terrain, ending in sharp turns or wide aprons. Others align with celestial events, solstices, planetary risings, star paths. Some researchers suggest the Nazca weren't just praying to the sky, they were communicating with it, inviting someone, something.
Fact.
And the figures themselves, especially the so-called astronaut geoglyph, show beings with large eyes, antennas or helmets waving as if to signal. Were they markers or maps across the continent in the rainforests and temples of Central America? The Maya carried this cosmic obsession even further. To the Maya, time was sacred, not in years or centuries, but in world ages, tracked by the long count calendar, a mathematical marvel so precise. It predicted solar eclipses and planetary alignments thousands of years in advance. Their calendar didn't just measure time. It counted down to cycles of destruction and rebirth. Sound familiar? Just like the Hopi? Just like the ancient Hindus? Just like the Dogon and Egyptians and Tibetans? But the Maya didn't just track the heavens they claimed to be taught by those from the stars. Their god, Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, was said to descend from the sky, bring laws, science, astronomy, and then depart, promising to return when the stars align. Kukulkan is nearly identical to the Aztec Quetzalcoatl, and bears uncanny resemblance to other sky gods worldwide. Enki of the Sumerians, Osiris of Egypt, Krishna of India, always arriving in luminous form, always tied to knowledge, always departing with a vow. At Palenque, the tomb of the great King Pakol features one of the most controversial carvings in ancient history, the sarcophagus lid. To the Maya, it shows Pakol descending into the underworld. But look again. To many modern eyes, it appears Pakol is seated in a craft, hands on levers, surrounded by what looks like exhaust, control panels, and antenna, an ancient astronaut not in myth, but in stone. Coincidence? Or is this the Nazca code, the Maya message, the Hopi prophecy, all telling the same story? That sky beings came, that they guided us, that they left when we began to forget, but they left traces, in desert lines, in calendars, in stories the elders still whisper. And maybe they're not gone at all. Maybe they're watching, waiting for the right alignment, for the right vibration, for the right remembering. At the center of every pyramid, beneath every ceremonial altar, the ancients carved a simple truth. As above, so below. What if this wasn't just a philosophy? What if it was a literal agreement with the sky? In the sacred cities of the Maya and Aztecs, the line between heaven and earth was not a boundary, it was a contract. One forged in blood, sung in ritual, and enforced by gods who came not from myth, but from the stars. Let us return to Teotihuacana, vast, eerily geometric city in central Mexico. At its height, it was one of the largest cities in the world, yet we still don't know who built it. The name, given by later Aztecs, means the place where gods were born, and the layout? It mirrors the Orion constellation. The Pyramid of the Sun and the Pyramid of the Moon align with celestial markers, solstices, equinoxes, and planetary orbits. These weren't just temples. They were star maps anchored in stone. But why? Why go to such cosmic lengths? Because the ancients believed that the gods who came from the stars also needed something in return. And that need was energy. Not oil, not gold, life force. To the Maya and Aztecs, sacrifice wasn't brutality, was currency. A sacred offering to beings who controlled the weather, the harvest, the future. Some rituals were symbolic offerings of corn, flowers, smoke, but others were far more literal. Hearts lifted to the sun, blood spilled in rhythm with the stars. Priests climbing stepped pyramids, timing their rituals to celestial alignments, believing that each cut, each drumbeat kept the universe in balance. To us, this is horrific, but to them, it was survival. And the gods? They weren't abstract deities. They had names. They had forms. They descended in fiery serpents as Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl, and they returned to the sky. This theme repeats again and again in temple carvings. You'll find serpents with feathers, not crawling creatures, but winged radiant beings descending from the heavens, merging human and divine. Their mouths sometimes open wide, revealing human figures emerging from within, as if these serpents were crafts or portals. Were these gods beings of light and wisdom? Or were they watchers, monitoring, instructing, demanding? In the Mayan papal VA, it is said that the gods created humans from maize, but the first versions failed. The gods destroyed them. They tried again. The message was clear. Humanity was a project, a work in progress. Failure had consequences. Even the great city of Chichen Itza contains signs of this ancient tension. The famous El Castillo Pyramid is built with 365 steps, one for each day of the year and during equinox. Serpent of light slithers down its stairs as the sun sets. Was this architecture or an invocation? Did the ancients build these structures not just to honor the gods, but to communicate with them, to create platforms of resonance, channels of sacrifice, contracts in stone? Some modern theorists suggest that the rituals may have begun benign energy exchanges, chants, fire, offerings. But over time, as memory faded and fear took root, these rituals grew darker, more desperate, more violent. The gods stopped coming. Or perhaps they were watching silently, waiting to see what we would do. And maybe that silence became terrifying. So the priests offered more blood, more bodies, hoping to reopen a door that had long since closed. Could it be that what began as communion became corruption? And could the gods' departure have been a test when we failed? Yet not all hope was lost. Legends say Quetzalcoatl, left by sea, promising to return when a certain star reappeared, that he would bring a new dawn. It's a time of balance. It's a time when sacrifice would end and knowledge would return. But when the Spanish arrived, bearing crosses, guns, and pale faces, the Aztecs believed it was him. They welcomed their destroyers. The gods did not return. Or perhaps they did, just not in the form we expected. From high above the dry plains of southern Peru, it looks like a message waiting to be read. The Nazca line's massive geoglyphs carved into the earth, untouched for centuries, straight lines stretching for miles, spirals, animal figures, humanoid waving at the heavens. To stand beside one is to see a shallow trench in the dust. To fly over them is to realize they were never meant to be seen from the ground. Who carved them, and more importantly, why? Mainstream theories say they were offerings to gods or astronomical markers. But some researchers suggest something far bolder, that these lines may have been runways, designed not for gods, but for craft. The terrain was flattened with precision. The lines often start and stop abruptly, as if cut by a machine. Many are clustered like a navigation grid, crisscrossing in a pattern more reminiscent of a flight plan than a prayer. Were the Nazca people trying to guide something in? Or were they trying to follow something out? In a nearby museum sits a mystery that deepens the riddle, a collection of small golden objects known as the Quimbaya artifacts unearthed in Colombia. To the untrained eye, they look like birds or insects. But upon closer inspection, aerospace engineers notice something strange. They look aerodynamic like delta-wing jets, complete with tail fins, stabilizers, even cockpit-like humps. Some modern builders created scaled-up versions and they flew. These aren't toys, they're models. But models of what? And where did the inspiration come from? Because if we take the myth seriously, everywhere from the Hopi mesas to Mayan temples to Incan fortresses, we find a pattern. People saw beings from the sky. They worshipped them, and then they tried to become them. They mimicked the gods. In form, in ceremony, in architecture. Look at the stepped pyramids of Central America. Not just places of ritual, they resemble launch platforms, broad bases, narrow summits. In some depictions, beings are shown ascending with fire behind them, light pouring down, serpents flying upward. Now consider the story of Viracocha, the Incan god who emerged from Lake Titicaca. He was tall, bearded, glowing, and taught the people how to build, farm, and watch the stars. When his mission ended, he departed into the sky, promising to return. Same pattern, same prophecy, different name. And all across the Americas, we find legends of flight. In Brazil, the Kayapos speak of Bep Cororodi, a being who came from the sky in a booming suit, wielding a thunder stick. He lived in the mountains, taught them skills, and then blasted off, leaving smoke and fire behind. Ancient astronauts, or just elaborate metaphors. Depends on what you're willing to believe. Because it wasn't just myth. These civilizations built for the sky. They mapped it. They aligned entire cities like Teotihuacan and Tikal to match the movements of stars and planets with eerie precision. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. And maybe even preparing to return. What if the Nazca lines were the echoes of a time when something did come down? Something that showed them the sky and then vanished? And in the silence that followed, they tried to remember. They carved the shapes. They tracked the stars. They offered sacrifice. They built machines. But they never quite reached it again, because maybe they were never meant to. Maybe the message wasn't fly to us. Maybe it was. One day, you'll be ready. And perhaps we are. Today, we have the technology to see the lines, decode the calendars, simulate the physics. What was once divine now begins to look familiar, but the deeper question isn't about alien ships. It's about human awakening. Were the ancient people of the Americas visited? Perhaps, but they did more than worship. They responded. With temples, with maps, with stories carved in stone and whispered in ritual, they became echoes of the sky. Now those echoes are returning. In the hum of drones, in starships launching from desert bases, in the dreams of visionaries and scientists alike. Perhaps we are not the first sky seekers. But if the ancients built monuments to what they saw, then maybe we are the generation that builds what they imagined. The gods came once. Maybe next time, we'll be the ones returning. Thank you for watching Episode 7 of Alien Landings Across Ancient Civilizations. In this chapter, we soared through the skies of the Americas where ancient people may not have simply believed in the gods, but tried to become like them. From giant geoglyphs to flying relics, the echoes of the stars live in symbols, in stories, and perhaps in us. If this episode sparked wonder, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow explorers of the